Okay, a couple months ago, we posted our top films of 1997. Spoiler, this was not on my top films of 1997, but a lot of critics, this was and wasn't. And I think it's a great time to talk about it because a lot of people have some things against it, but a lot of people praise it. So it's one of those that it could be on, not a consensus top 10 movie of the year of 1997, and maybe we'll find out why.
Yeah, I was surprised to find that this film doesn't have a single Oscar nomination to its credit, because I just had assumed that it had.
Right, it's one of those, like...
I was like, this is probably a Best Picture or something from 97, I don't remember. But, yeah, The Ice Storm, 1997, no Oscar nominations, but was it worthy of one? Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Everybody, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for great deals to tell us some movies that we can do in the future. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. And we're going to talk about kind of a polarized movie for film critics.
I like
that. It is Ice Storm.
It's Thanksgiving 1973, and the Hood family is going through a bit of a crisis. Patriarch Ben is cheating on his wife, who is lost in search of a new purpose. Son Paul pines for a girl that seems to evade him, while daughter Wendy searches for agency, pitting two brothers against each other. Ah, the holidays.
Okay, so this is starring Kevin Kline, Joan Allen, Sigourney Weaver, who got a BAFTA Best Supporting Actress. So it didn't get an Oscar, it got a couple BAFTAs.
Yep.
And got a BAFTA for Best Screenplay. I think adapted screenplay, right? Because this is a book based on Rick Moody, book, same title.
Yep.
I also think he did the screenplay, but then I think James Schamus went in to do some rewriting.
Yeah, Schamus has the official credit for it.
Yeah.
But it should be noted that Rick Moody was a fan of the finished product. He reportedly cried his eyes out through the end credits.
Well, he could cry.
If to be honest though, when someone adapts your work, the first thing that goes through my mind is, oh, you're gonna mess it up.
You're gonna mess
it up. Yeah. So the fact that it comes out even resembling his book is probably a good thing.
This is directed by Ang Lee. This is, I think, his first Hollywood movie.
Well, he did Sense and Sensibility. Was it? I believe,
okay.
Or was it Pride and Prejudice? He did one of the Jane Austen adaptations before that.
But this is one of his kind of, well, if it's his second one, this one got him a little more recognition.
Yep.
Because after this, he would pretty much be able to do his own things. And then he would go on to work with James Schamus for Hulk and then Brokeback Mountain.
That's correct, yeah.
James Schamus wrote those two screenplays.
And Lust Caution as well, another English film.
And James Schamus went on to write The King's Daughter and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The cinematographer is Frederick Elms, who went on to direct. I think it's Blue. We talked about.
He did Blue Velvet and recently did The Dead Don't Die, a movie that I think looks pretty and don't care for. So
I think I've seen that one if I remember. We have I've seen a lot of movies with the title "Dead" into them. I got to remember which one it is. Film editor is Tom Sagariz, who's also did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Gosford Park, if you haven't checked that out, is one of those that's Downton Abbey before Downton Abbey, or upstairs, downstairs. It's very the dynamics of the working people inside and the aristocrats and stuff like that.
Yep.
But it's edited really fantastic. I know it's a boring concept for a lot of people, but the editing for that is marvelous.
And it's important to note Gosford Park does eventually have a murder, so
it does, right?
So at least it gets interesting,
right? Also, if you didn't know, this kind of breakout for a lot of young actors who are kind of old as me now, but Christina Ricci's in this, Elijah Wood, Katie Holmes, you have Tobey Maguire.
Well, and can I tell you something too? So I knew from the poster I saw that Kevin Kline was in the film, Joan Allen, Sigourney Weaver. That's it.
Yeah.
So know the poster, know those three actors. Hey, that's exciting. I like all three of them. And then the credits roll, and they keep going and going and going. And I'm like, wait, who else is in? And it was almost this joke where I was like, these people aren't even in the movie. You're just listing people you know at this point.
Which is almost like Ryan Johnson doing Glass Onion. I'm sure this
exactly.
is...
I was waiting the whole movie for Henry Czerny to show up, because I'm a fan of his. Ready or Not, Mission Impossible and such. And I was waiting for him to show up. He finally does show up at the actual party at the end. And I was like, there's the last guy on the list. All right, check him off.
So it's like a breakout roles for those guys. But then you have a lot of people who went on to have better standing on, like Allison Janney makes an appearance.
Yeah.
And then the bad guy, our bad guy, James Sheridan.
Yeah, Randall Flagg himself
Randall
from
Flagg's
The
in this.
Stand.
But both of those don't get a lot of screen time, but they went on to get another accolades for feature on. Yeah.
Yeah, a cast that is literally exploding from the scenes. And like even the ones that you may not initially know, I recognized Adam Hanbird, who was the brother of Elijah Wood's character in the film. He plays, Sandy. He was in Jumanji. He played the young Alan Parrish in the opening scenes of that film. And then I also remember because 1 year after the Ice Storm came out, he must have had like a huge growth spurt because he plays one of the like 18-year-old kids who gets murdered by Michael Myers in Halloween H2O. He goes through a ridiculous growth spurt in the span of a year.
I looked him up and it's like there's no what is he like an extra or whatever?
No,
like,
just like completely different look altogether. Yeah. Someone had to tell me about it, so that's why you could even tell. So I mean, even like characters you may not recognize the name, or like Henry Czerny, you may not recognize the name as viewers, but you've seen him, you've seen them before.
So it was a big hit of a book. Rick Moody went on to do some other stories. I don't know if they translated well to film. This did get a lot of good reviews. In fact, I think Roger Ebert put it on one of his top 10.
Yeah.
I don't know why it didn't go on. I can probably come in my review explain a little bit more, but I think the label of Rick Moody, already known as pretentious, probably stained the movie as well.
Yeah.
Because he's always been labeled with his writing as somehow pretentious in his writing, and it translates to this story. And I think that kind of rubs people off a little bit.
He's a bit moody.
A bit moody too. Right.
Well, I think it's a film almost of two halves. There's everything leading up to the night, the ice storm itself, and then there's the ice storm. It's like
it's a book about the kids and the adults.
Yeah.
It's almost like Romeo and Juliet. It's also about the kids, but then the adults too.
It feels like a story that would have made for great adaptation for student short films because you could have just picked like two of the characters from the novel and just adapted their story. You know, if you wanted to make a smaller budget thing. There's all these like, and again, it's a collection of characters. Yes, they're all interconnected. Yes, they're all kind of on their own personal journeys though. So I think watching the film, if you don't connect with one of the major characters, sure, there's other ones you'll like, but it could damper your ability to enjoy the film.
Yeah, I agree. And another reason I think it didn't get a lot of accolades for movies is because you have a lot of actors who we appreciate the movies that they're in. We're big fans of Sigourney Weaver, and her character is not somebody we enjoy. Same with Kevin Kline. We love Kevin Kline in like In and Out and comedies, and then he does this, and we don't like his character at all.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of people who are known for doing characters we enjoy and doing things that, oh my God, what the hell are you doing? Including Christina Ricci.
Yeah, Christina Ricci, yeah.
What the hell are you doing? Yeah.
Manipulating the hell out of some teens, yo.
Yeah. So it's a lot of, I think a lot of that subconsciously, oh, we like these people. Well, what are you doing? I hate this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, even the ones that kind of skirt our ability to like them. You know, like we want...
Oh, James Sheridan's got... Randall Flagg's charismatic a little bit.
Yeah, well, like we kind of feel for him because he's kind of doing the same thing that Joan Allen is for most of the film, in that he's on the receiving end of betrayal. Yeah. Joan Allen, we want to really like what she does, but she also kind of has a coldness to her as a character that makes us want to access that emotional side, but she herself is trying to access.
Yeah, she's not a very good mother.
Tobey Maguire, who like consistently skirts doing horrible things throughout the film with his little story as well, because he could do some very awful things and kind of like rides that line of is he going to, isn't he going to, that whole thing. So even the ones we want to like, and like Kevin Kline, we want to like him, but we also we like to not like him too. Fish Called Wanda of it all is we like to hate him as well, but we also get a situation here where like it's really frustrating to find a kernel to like, because like it's almost like he's trying to make us feel sorry for him as an opposite, so that we dislike him more. And that's kind of a troublesome thing, is connecting these characters.
Yeah. So after this, I think it's one of those, I remember coming on the video store and like, what is this? Obviously, to me, it's registered as Oscar bait. And I think that's another strike for this movie. Mm-hmm. It seems pretentious. We have a lot of people that we liked in other movies that are doing good things that we like. And then it came out very much Oscar bait time. Yeah. Late November, early December, and I think those are kind of the three things that Oscars, they don't want to seem like you're forcing them to love a movie.
Yeah, we've had that a few times, even just this year with films like Amsterdam that came and went because it came out and it was going to be sold as this look at the star-studded cast in this movie, and the movie came and went, made an abysmal amount of money, underperformed compared to Smile, a low-budget horror films. We've seen Oscar bait movies that come and go with that way, and some of them just don't stick the landing. Doesn't mean they're not good movies. Doesn't mean they're not worthy of it. But there's a lot of movies out, and you have to remember at this time in '97, we only had 5 Best Picture nominees. It wasn't like we have now when we have 10. When we have 10, you can throw in a blockbuster and one of those smaller budget indies that you can kind of figure out.
1997 was a fantastic year for movies. We mentioned that before.
You'd seen this film before we did that list, and it didn't make your top 10. So there was a lot of movies that came out this year, and not to forget, this movie did compete for the Palme d'Or, so it did get some accolades in that respect at the Cannes Film Festival. It just didn't make it to the end of the season.
All right. So it's a great time to talk about my review, and I'll kind of explain why it was not on my list for 1997. Okay, I'm going to hand off the keys because this is Kyle's first time seeing this. It's his first reaction. So I always enjoy people their first time seeing stuff. So overall, with your review, what do you think of Ice Storm? You've heard about it before. You go blindly into this.
Yeah, I try my best to go blind into films if I don't have to.
You know about the cover, of course, right?
Yeah, I know the cover poster, and in my head, I kind of made it out as a combined film with The Big Chill because they're both cold theme movies with Kevin Kline. It took me a bit to invest in the film because I think the film feels lost for the first act of it. Okay. Once we get to the ice storm itself, the night of, where the various characters in the family have split off, moved to their separate stories, I started feeling like the wheels in motion started to pick up. And it's there where some of the slower aspects at the beginning of the film started to matter more because the character setups became character payoffs.
Right.
It just took a bit because I felt like some of the dialogue, especially at the beginning of the movie, felt very stilted. The screenplay, just a lot of characters who were enjoying school. There was that kind of, overactingness quality to the dialogue. And I think more so to the dialogue than to the actors playing it because everyone was doing it.
I agree.
For a bit.
I agree. And this is my kind of the third time seeing this. And I finally caught on that what he was trying to do with the train, doing with the script also. It stalled. Well, the family stalled. Then because it stalled because of the ice storm and Toby's stuck in there. But then the train starts slowly moving forward. The story is supposed to slowly move forward until it gets a full blast to the end. And I think he wants to use the train as the barometer to move the script. But I think you need something right away to say, you're not going to enjoy these people. None of them. You're not going to enjoy it. Everybody is on a, not really self-destructive path, but everybody likes to contaminate everybody else's life.
Yeah.
It's like a virus. Viruses don't attack other viruses, but viruses like to stir the pot. Yeah. And that's very hard to celebrate a movie when you don't really like any of the characters in it, what they're doing.
Yeah. But it goes back to that thing I said before, and I say it a lot, is that you don't have to have likable characters as long as they're interesting. And I do think most of the characters in the film build that interest over time, where it does get that strong. And like I said, that last hour of the film for me rockets forward. I was in the whole time for the rest of the film. I was bought in. I loved where it was going. It just took a little bit of, chugga, before it started going. Right. From the point of the film when it began, I don't know why in my head, but I saw, Tobey Maguire's character on the stalled train and then getting off, seeing his family. In my head, I was like, oh, all 4 of these guys are going to die by the end. That was, I don't know why my head went there, but I was immediately like, they're going to all die, aren't they?
Right, I did too, because he seemed like this is a tragic event.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen like that. And of course, if we do have a death, that's kind of almost you want to laugh at it almost a little bit.
It's so peculiar.
So peculiar.
And that was one of the things Ang Lee said, brought him into the film, because he goes, there's this kind of awkward black comedy to the whole film, but it's under the surface. He said, but for me, it was the climactic scenes involving our character and our tragedy that made him go, I need to make this movie. And I can understand that, because that's the scene where anything I was feeling at that point, when that moment happens, I was like, oh, what the hell's going to happen next? You couldn't have pried me out of the chair at that point.
And it happens, the death happens because a kid, for the first time in his life, is acting like a kid. Because the kids are trying to be like adults, and the adults are trying to be like kids.
Yeah,
doing
subconsciously a lot.
Subconsciously, I don't really want to have any more responsibility, and the kids are trying to act older than they are, including Christina Ricci, who I will not I'm not trying to justify her things, what she's doing, but she thinks she's sophisticated enough to do this.
Yeah, she's like, it's almost like she's looking for a cigarette to burn on her arm. Like she's looking to feel
and then blame
anything.
somebody else for leaving the cigarette out.
Yeah. And that's the most engaging element of the film is that nobody is who they're supposed to be in this place, and that's part of it is being 1973. You know,
there's a reason specifically, right?
Yeah, and having that setting of 1973, a tumultuous time in our culture. We have kids disagreeing with their parents. We have like kind of that like hippie culture with the blue collar culture, and all these things kind of not jiving together. Yeah. And it's funny that we have that opening get together with all the adults, eating dinner together, and it's the most calm that the film is because everyone's got the facade. Everyone's hiding what's going on, and then we start seeing the cracks start to build. So,
and one of the things is, I just watching this movie, it doesn't have the final and ending to it that just retains with you, because like I forget how the hell did this movie end. I forget how this movie ends.
The final moments.
It doesn't retain to me why this ends, and I think that's another thing that I would like, and another reason why I kept it off my list, because number one, I don't have. It's one of those things that you enjoy. You're supposed to enjoy all the minutes. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff that, why are we watching this? You could cut this. And so I think Emily's forcing you to watch things that are just. It's not the uncomfortable parts, but there's a lot of things like why are we waiting to do something?
Yeah,
like the slow burn or get your engines going, but also there's a lot of things I just don't. They're just They're forgettable. Like there's a lot of things that are forgettable to me, and I talk about it has to be memorable and unforgettable. There's a lot of good, memorable performances, but there's a lot of things that are just after 5 years I'm going to forget about that ever in this movie.
Yeah,
including the ending. I forgot the ending.
Yeah, it's a lot of people skating on the ice and like slowly running into each other. Like
you had to do it. Yeah,
they're all kind of doing their separate figure eights, and they're incrementally kind of running into each other, colliding, causing friction, and then moving on. And
I like that.
Elsewhere.
That's it. Yes, I like that.
It kind of just feels, it feels like someone just kind of like took all these people, put them in a ball, and shook it, and watched them all bounce off each other. Because that's kind of the part where, again, you have to kind of like seeing that kind of stuff, and like seeing families basically implode, because there's a lot of heartbreak in this film. It reminded me a lot of like American Beauty. It reminded me a lot of 6 Feet Under, another Alan Ball related project of like these people who are putting on the facade that we've got our lives figured out, and they have nothing figured out.
But the arcs of all those characters, American Beauty, I understand. The trajectory of all these characters. I don't know. Yeah, it's almost like, where are you going to go? You're going here? I thought you're going this way.
Yeah, there's a couple characters where I didn't really fully engage with their arc.
Yeah.
Joan Allen's character, Elena, I was like on the cusp of like her character. I was like, I think I'm getting where you're going, but you're not really going there. Jamie Sheridan's character surprises with some of his character moments. And maybe it was because I expected him to be more of a main character, and he kind of turned out to be a secondary, so we didn't get as much build with him. There's the characters that surprised me were the kids, because they actually had fully fleshed out stories.
They did.
Whereas some of the adults kind of like moved to the background, and had less to do when the going got going.
I would venture, if you want to sell the movie, it's the kids first instead of the adults on the cover. I understand those people carry the movie.
Yeah, they're the sellers,
But in reality, you want to say this is more about the destruction of the kids, and nobody's watching them.
Yeah, because even like Tobey Maguire's character, you could have excised everything. Like he could have just left at the end of dinner and just gone back to school. And I don't think anything. The whole thing with him and Katie Holmes' character and the other guy. I can't remember the other guy. But
Put that in the story. That he just gets up and leaves, and it's almost like they don't care.
Yeah.
Then I understand more about them than all the
there were certain things, and maybe it was in the name, I'm sure, of making it closer to the book. But as we've said before, adaptation is not translation. It is creating something new from a different medium. Yeah. So there are certain things I would have excised, and I think it would have made a little bit more of a streamline. But overall, I think, thankfully, the film sticks the landing until the last few minutes. Again, I kind of agree with you. The whole what is the last minute of the movie? I watched it yesterday. I'm still not entirely sure, but it's all the collisions that take place in that back half, all the drama and the character moments that just really wrench out.
I mean, there's a great opportunity, the great scene of Sigourney Weaver realizing that her son found a whip. Like, where the hell did you get this kid?
I like that she yells at him for blowing stuff up, leaves, and he's just like, well, got something else. He just starts.
What a half-ass assery for disciplining your kid or a teaching moment. Nah, just whatever.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
like-
Joan Allen does that when she catches her daughter. Get dressed.
Yeah, it's like, take that whip away. Here's a gun. Here's this. Go and cause mayhem elsewhere.
So I have to say, it's a movie about dysfunctional, and it's not a lot of fun. Simpsons put fun in dysfunctional.
Yeah.
This movie takes out the fun of dysfunctional, as well as trying to adjust to social changes. The backdrop is political changes as well, the political dynamics of the Nixon and everything, and that we don't trust anybody. But then I'm being bad to bad, and what the heck's the point of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed upon finishing the movie, I went back and rewatched some of my preferable scenes, the ones I really liked in the film.
Yeah.
And I thought what was so interesting to me was that the first time I was watching it, I wasn't cluing into a lot of the black comedy. And the second time I watched some of those scenes, I was doing that whole I can't believe this is happening, even though I knew where we were going. It was connecting with kind of the absurdity of certain elements of the story, like going to the key party at the end. It's like I clued in looking for a dramatic reason for that, and it's really more of an absurdist reason. It's again, I like to make the joke of Chekhov. This is Chekhov's key party because it's introduced in the first scene, pops off later on. So,
So have you seen Ice Storm?
Yeah.
Chances are you haven't. Right? Yeah.
you might be me, and you might have seen films like The Ice Harvest and
think it's The
and
Ice
thought
Storm,
it was
right.
the same movie for a little while. Let us know your thoughts down below on The Ice Storm. Almost said Harvest. And then which Ang Lee film should we cover next? He's got quite a few other films. We've already covered Brokeback Mountain.
Or you can change our trajectory with Sigourney Weaver or Kevin Kline or Elijah Wood was in this movie. Or,
There you go.
Yeah.
Or we could talk Life of Pi, which doesn't have Tobey Maguire because he was let go from the film. But anyway, let us know your thoughts on the film down below and which one we should cover next. We'd love to hear from you guys. And one way that you can have your voice heard even more is, as Nick mentioned before, join the Patreon down below.
Exactly. We appreciate it.
Patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm. We'd love to have you over there.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford to do the Patreon, one of the ways you can support the channel, liking and subscribing.
He's got
leaving
it.
those comments down below.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us so very much. And you can find all my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts, and we know how to handle ice. We live in Minnesota. We know
You
how
don't get on the jumping board. You stay off.